So here they are, guys. That's my whole BFS crankbait box. And the beauty of throwing small baits is that's a small tackle tray and I have a ton of baits in there. You don't need a lot of storage room to carry quite a few of these small baits. I just wanted to take some time out of this fishing trip that I'm on here to take you guys through some of the crankbaits that I've been throwing over the past year to 2 years. I pretty much got my crankbaits and jerkbaits narrowed down to just one box, guys, that I keep on me at all times. These are the baits that I have a ton of confidence in, and if you've been watching me for any period of time, you know that I've caught my biggest bass on crankbaits. So stay tuned. I'm gonna tell y'all a little about each bait, and I'm gonna try to give you all some good application points for them as well. So what I think I'll do, guys, is start with the shallow baits and then work my way into the deeper ones and finish off with like the jerk baits. So this first bait is in the top 3 of my favorite BFS baits that I have come across and that I've thrown a lot over the last year or two. I've also caught some of the biggest bass of my life on this little 1/4 ounce 6 cents Crush 25X. It's a silent square bill. It runs 2 to 4 feet. I normally throw it on 6-pound fluoro. If I'm around really heavy cover, sometimes I'll throw it on 7 or 8, but 9 times out of 10, I'm throwing this on 6-pound fluoro and a Dobbin Sierra, most of the time my 740C, so I can make really long casts with it and keep that bait in the water scurrying along the bottom and bouncing off cover as long as I can. Something else that I do on a lot of these crankbaits, guys, and you've seen me do it and you've seen me talk about it quite a bit, I throw them almost always with a small line snap. I use size 0. This is just a VMC one. I also use these silent ones that have a little rubber covering on the outside. These don't. These are just a plain old metal snap. But it works to help you change your baits out fast, but most importantly, it helps them run just a little bit deeper, and it even almost gives them somewhat of a suspending effect or a sinking effect depending on how small the bait. With the Crush 25X, guys, its action is actually a pretty wide wobble for such a small bait. So when I want an aggressive wobble action, I go to this thing. And maybe most importantly, the fact that it is silent sets it apart from like 90% of other crankbaits. A lot of guys don't throw the silent bait, so if you need something different in high pressure conditions, that Crush 25 is money. Dark overcast days or rainy days, I throw it in that Black Magic, or when the water just gets really cold, I throw that Black Magic a lot. If it's a little brighter and they're really keying in on shad, I've had some really good days on that baby shad color as well. One other color that I don't have on me is a bluegill colored one. In the spring and in the summertime, I'll throw a bluegill pattern Crush 25 quite a bit as well. And most commonly, I throw this bait spring all the way through the late fall. Another bait that's definitely in the top 3 for most productive, both in numbers and size of fish caught on Bait Finesse for me this year, guys, and you've seen it a lot, the Duo Realis Mid-Roller 40F. It's a 40mm crankbait, guys, or about 1.36 inches. It's 3/16 of an ounce too. Duo puts a really good weight transfer system in these baits. They will cast really well into the wind and with the wind. This thing runs 4 to 6 feet, so it kind of flirts with that medium diving range a bit as well. With the line snap on there, it has a very killer, almost suspending action when you stop it. It can work very well in high pressure conditions and in low pressure conditions, like when you've got cloudy, rainy days. And I've slayed with it in bluebird conditions, guys. And by far the most productive color pattern for me has been this true gill color. It is such a pretty crankbait, but they also make it in a lot of other color patterns, guys. I've done well in the wintertime on this red and orange colored one as well. And I've caught a few fish on this prism gill colored, which is more of a mirrored effect. And they are expensive. They're like $14.99, but I've really only lost like 2 or 3 of these things, and I've been throwing them for the last 1.5 years. So they don't get snagged up too much, and even if they do, a lot of times they pop off. This one has a pretty tight wobble action, and it does have a very subtle rattle in it. This thing is a killer from spring all the way into the late fall and even into the winter, guys. This thing is a very versatile crank, guys, and it can be productive year round. Probably one of the best crankbaits I own right there. This next bait, guys, I can't remember if it came out in the spring or the summer. I'm thinking the summer, but it's a square bill crankbait, the Megabass BFS sized Griffin. It's 3/16 of an ounce. This one is not silent. It has a high pitched rattle to it, and it is much smaller than that Crush 25, guys. A very, very small profile on that thing. It comes in a lot of really good colors. I've yet to really throw this one a whole lot. I will throw it more in the winter time here, in that craw color. I did throw the bluegill pattern one a lot this summer and had some good trips with it. Caught quite a few fish on it, and I did have a recent one in the fall where I caught a lot of bass on that bluegill colored one. And on some really, really tough days, guys, I've been saved by this almost translucent shad colored one. Just that little extra rattle to it and the very small size profile helps trigger some fish that are ultra lethargic into biting. If you're really having a hard time getting a bite and it's almost like bluebird conditions, that translucent shad one has saved me a few times. With these BFS Griffins, you get the best of both worlds. It's very finesse in its action in that it has a tight wobble, but you also get the reaction benefit of it having that rattle in it. These run, you know, very similar to the Crush 25, about that 2 to 4 feet mark. And with this, I do not go any heavier than 6 pound line, guys. I throw it on very light line, 4 to 6 pound line. 6 pound line is really my sweet spot, so I throw it on 6 quite a bit. It's a lot smaller, so I will throw it on my Sioux Dragon, a really moderate action cranking rod, guys. This bait right here, guys, probably rounds out the top 3 of crankbaits that I have by far the most confidence in and have been the most productive for me. That's the Rapala ultralight crank. It's only 1.5 inches long. It's 1/8 of an ounce, but the action on this little crankbait is insane, especially when you put a line snap on there. The wobble is crazy, and it has a pretty aggressive, like, one knocker in it, and it can draw some big bites, guys. I have caught a bass over 8 pounds on this very small crankbait. It's best on 4 to 6 pound line. I'll go 4 pound test in cold water and in the winter to get it down deeper, and I'll go 6 pound test in the warmer months when I need just a little bit more assurance that I got a little more line behind it. By far the most productive colors for me are this black and chrome one. That is the exact bait that I caught one of the 8 pound bass on, and this thing is killer when the sun is out with that mirror effect on the bottom of it. And if it's actually more cloudy or low pressure, I actually go to that shad color, which is a killer. I've seen it just load the boat, both myself and with people who come with me. That thing is a killer. Another good color is just that perch color, and it can mimic bluegill as well. So maybe one of the prettiest cranks that I own, guys, are these Euro Tackle Z crankers. They come in so many cool colors. I've caught fish on this bluegill colored one. I've caught fish on this threadfin shad color one. Ultra realistic. And then you can also see they make like a sunfish colored one, and they make a really pretty craw colored one. It has a red belly on it and a brown top. In terms of size, this one is about 1.5 inches, and it's only 1/8 of an ounce, guys. This thing is marketed to run like about 3 to 7 feet. It's a very finesse crankbait, guys. You have to throw it on very light line. 4 pound test actually works the best, and you need a very moderate cranking rod to throw these on. I use my Sioux Dragon. It does have a very high pitched rattle to it, and it has a pretty wide wobble, but not as wide as the next bait that I'll show you. And in terms of speed with these, you have to use a pretty moderate retrieve. You can't burn it without this thing blowing out, but it's a very realistic crankbait, and it does get bit. Guys, I might not put this bait in the top 3 but it is flirting with it because I've had some wild trips on the Crush 25 MD from 6 cents. I pretty much only throw it in one color because I really only try to throw it more in stained water. And the color that I throw it in is that Spanish bone, just that straight white. It does have a rattle. Unlike the Crush 25X, it does have a very faint rattle. That's kind of one of the things that 6 cents is known for, that faint rattle. And it's got that medium diving bill on it. On light line, this thing will run about 4 to 8 feet. On the box, it's gonna say 7, but if you throw this thing on 6-pound line with a snap, it's gonna hit 8. And I used it around docks this summer, and I can't tell you how many 4 to 5 pound bass that I caught on it. It was just killing it there for a while. It has a pretty good wide wobble to it, and that faint rattle system just triggers, and that faint rattle system that it's got in it helps trigger those bites, guys. This one is a 1/4 ounce, and you need just a little more backbone in your BFS rod to throw this. I like throwing it on my Dobbins 740C or 700C. One bait that I've just kind of stumbled across within the last couple of months is this Caperlin WXM Crank 40 millimeters long, 1.36 inches, guys, 5/32 of an ounce, so a little bit heavier, helps it cast really far. It has a tight wobble, but it has a pretty loud rattle to it. So that tight wobble and that loud rattle has actually been producing really well for me now that the water's gotten into the 50s. I love throwing white, guys, so that so this color one has produced for me really well. I caught almost a 6-pounder on it just recently, and I've had a couple other people in the boat with me who have used it and have caught white bass and largies on it. This thing will run about 4 to 8 feet, about 8 feet if you add that line snap and throw it on 4 to 6 pound line. You can get away with throwing this on about any moderate action BFS rod that you want. It can even be pretty light because the action on that thing isn't super aggressive and it's a really small profile. So to round out the medium to deep diving one, guys, is this Megabass BFS MRX Griffin. So it actually dives very similar to all the other ones, about 4 to 8 feet. I throw it on 4 to 6 pound line again. I do use a line snap, and it has the same characteristics of the square bill BFS Griffin, guys. It's got a pretty tight wobble, but it's got a really high pitched tinny rattle to it. And if you need to get down just a little bit deeper, I've thrown it on some dams and riprap, and I have caught fish on this thing. I haven't put as much time into this one as I have into the shallow running Griffin though, guys. Guys, if I need to get down pretty dang deep, all the way up to about 10 feet, I will throw the 6 cents Curve 55. I'll throw this on 8-pound line, guys, just because it's so heavy. It's 3/8 of an ounce and it's 55 millimeters long, but it has a really kind of odd, wide, curvy, hence the name, action to it, and it does have a rattle on it. But I have done really well, especially into the late fall and winter, on this bait right here. I like it in black and blue. I like it in a white color. And I also have it in a really cool red craw color that I have tied on right now, actually. One of the jerk baits that I throw the most, guys, as the water gets into the 50s and 40s is this Duo Realis Rosante Shad, size 63 millimeters, 3/16 of an ounce. I like to throw it in the white in stained water, and I like to throw it in like a goldish mirrored color when the sun's out. It has a very, very subtle action to it, guys. With these small jerk baits, you cannot twitch very hard. It has to be very, very faint, very subtle jerks to not blow the action out. They do have a really faint rattle in them. If you put a line snap on them, guys, that's a hack. It can give them a very slow sinking action. So when the water gets really cold or when they're very lethargic, they will crush it when that line snap is on there, and it makes it have that slow sink action. These things cast incredibly well into the wind and with the wind, much like all of the other duo baits. And line size is crucial. With these small jerk baits, you honestly want to go all the way down to 4-pound fluoro. I have caught some really good sized winter bass on the Duo Realis Shad 57 MR, guys. It has a little more aggressive action on it compared to the shallow diving one, so you can twitch it a little bit harder, but you still want to throw it on the very light 4-pound line, and you want to use that line snap again to give it that really faint dying sinking action. If you don't, and you really want to give it the true suspending action, just tie up directly to the split ring. In terms of colors, With the deep diving model, I really like it in natural shads. There's a couple different natural shads that they make. This is one of my favorites right here. Another new BFS bait on the Megabass line is their X70 jerkbait. I have caught a couple of fish on this. I haven't thrown it a ton, but it has a super subtle action. You really have to be very delicate with the twitches, otherwise it'll blow out. It's 3/16 of an ounce. It doesn't cast quite as well as the duo baits do, guys. So I fish in the wind a lot, so that's probably one of the main reasons why I haven't thrown it as much. Another really cool small jerkbait is on the Euro Tackle Z line. They make a very small jerkbait. It's like just right at 2 inches, maybe even a little under, and they put it in those super realistic colors. Again, they have it in like the sunfish, and I've thrown it on this shad as well. And bonus bait for you guys who fish a lot of shallow water, creeks, ponds, that kind of thing, get you a Rebel Raider. Those things are killer. They're 1/8 of an ounce. It's a lipless suspending jerkbait, guys, and those things flash around like the little minnows that you see in the water, and they will get lit up. I've caught a ton of pond and creek bass on these things over the years. I need to put new hooks on that one because they got rusty from one of the boxes that I had them in, but really good bait right there. And last but not least, guys, are lipless crankbaits. I've been throwing them a lot here in the wintertime so far. I have two that I've found that I like quite a bit. The first is this Euro Tackle Z Vibe. They make it in a lot of different sizes, guys, but for the big lakes that I fish, I like it in their big 3/8 ounce size. It's like a hybrid blade slash lipless crankbait. It has a very tight wobble to it, more like a blade bait, but it's got a good rattle to it like a lipless crankbait would as well. I've caught some good bass on it, and I've also caught white bass on this thing. And then for a smaller lipless option, guys, this is a 50mm Caperlin WXM size 50 lipless crankbait. This thing has a really loud, like rattle trap volume loud rattle to it, and it will cast a mile because it's really small, compact, and it's still 3/8 of an ounce, so that thing will send like a bullet. So you have to be careful on the BFS reels, guys, because you have such a small amount of line on the spool. I dang near casted my entire line off of the spool using these lipless baits, and I do line up all the way to like 7-pound FC Sniper has actually worked the best on both of these lipless that I've found. 6-pound is a little bit too light, and you risk breaking off when you really wing them out there. So that 7-pound FC Sniper works pretty good on these lipless baits, guys. And in terms of application of fishing with these small crankbaits, guys, it's no different than normal crankbait fishing. You throw them by cover, you make really long casts, you find the right winding speed retrieve that the fish want for that day, whether it be a burn, whether it be like a stop and go, or whether it be like a twitch retrieve. You make really long casts, get the bait down to depth, keep it in the strike zone as long as possible, and wait for them to rip into it. It's one of my favorite styles of fishing, guys. It's produced the biggest fish for me of my life, and those are my favorite baits. I know I left out a ton of small baits that are out there on the market. If y'all have some small crankbaits that you really enjoy throwing that you want me to know about, drop those down in the comments below, talk with me, and let me know about them. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet, guys. Share this to a finesse loving friend. Leave a like for me if you want to. Check out my playlist in the pinned comment, and y'all take her easy. We'll catch you on the next one.